So, good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning,
Good,
ma'am.
good morning, everyone around the world and in India and everywhere who are watching this special program. This is very special because we are going to talk about war. War and its effects on economy, world economy. So, whoever is watching around the world, they should also watch. And I welcome them all to have or understand what's going to happen and what is happening during this difficult time of chaos. So I have Harmit Chawla over here, who is an expert in real estate, in ammunition, and he's owner of few companies. He has rich background in real estate as well as in arms and ammunition field. So I would request Mr. Harmit Chawla to share something about what is war, what all wars are going around, and how it is impacting the world and our daily life and the economy. So over to Mr. Harmit Chawla. Welcome, Harmit Chawla, to
Thank you,
Maven
ma'am.
platform. Yes.
Thank you so much for having me again on this platform. I think it's a lovely initiative on various topics that you bring around to educate and you know uh, involve people in knowing, letting them know what's happening globally, and to all the other members of Maven who've been very thoughtful in having me on different occasions. This. Uh, as you rightly pointed out, the subject war and its impact on the global economies, and I think we're talking about this topic at a very pure and beautiful time of Navratri, and I would only pray to Ma Durga that peace prevails. But she can only bless. The remaining part is our own karma as human beings to kind of take it and see where we take our actions and evaluate it. Uh, as we all know, uh, war has been on in the human civilization and history for ages and ages. I don't think there is a time where there's some kind of a human conflict which has not been on, or people haven't been fighting, and whether it was a matter of kingdom, whether it was a matter of greed, whether it was a matter of wealth, whether it became ideological issues or it became a matter of religion, ethnicity, caste. There have always been conflicts, and the conflicts have always, at some point in time, gotten larger and larger. So if we pick up the last little more than close to 100 years, we've had world wars. But if you look at last 30 years itself, uh, you might not have the magnitude of the war, which is like a world war, but you've had major conflicts happening. Thousands and thousands and lakhs of people have died all over. Now, why I'm bringing this into perspective and how does it eventually impact the economies is I'll come to that part. Uh, if we see, and why we're taking up this topic today, and you've chosen on this platform to talk about it, because we are living in extremely turbulent and dangerous times. Going by what's happening in the Middle East, what's happening in the European continent with Ukraine, with Russia. These are things which haven't kind of happened at the spur of the moment on day, today or yesterday. It's been building up for a couple of decades now. Uh, and when you do not come to solutions, you eventually come to a point where you will find an inflection point where such kind of situations is something that humanity is facing. Uh, Last 1 week, if we see what's happened in the Middle East, is something that I think, Nupur ma'am, you would kind of validate, in many talks with you in professionally and personally. I've always been saying for last, I think, close to about 2.5 years, that we are sitting on a ticking time bomb where the Middle East would probably, explode. Europe would explode, and things would probably, start engulfing the remaining part of the globe. Uh, and we are coming out into this situation post an era where for about 2 years we had, you know, COVID, businesses were down, economies was drastically hit. And even if you go a couple of years back before COVID, the global economy had already started slowing down. Things were starting to look very tough. Things were not doing really well in the US market. Things were very tough in the European continent. Uh, as much as we would like to we talk about and things look rosy in the Indian subcontinent, but the fact of the matter is the economies have been slow. Things have not been all that rosy in the Indian subcontinent also. And this I'm talking pre-COVID. So then comes in the COVID part, and then things anyway went into the negative tailspin. Now, once we are kind of trying to find our feet, I'm not saying that the recoveries have happened and things are very hunky-dory. It's just that from the COVID point, economies have starting to come to a point to find some stability and do the recoveries of the losses that were kind of inflicted because of the 2 years of COVID. Now comes the part where you all of a sudden have Ukraine, which had its bearing on for the economy for the first 8, 9, 10 months before people started to come around and find their way around and find stability within that thing, and people understood that this conflict is here to stay. It's only a matter of time as to when, hopefully not when the whole of Europe gets involved in it. If that gets involved, things will get even worse. Now we're sitting today as on 16th of October on a ticking time bomb where either the situation gets contained between the Palestinians, the Hamas, and the Israelis, and it doesn't engulf the whole of Middle East. Now, if it does, then you have from a humanity point and from an economics point, both extremely bad situations, because these are large continents, large populous areas, which are going to be engulfed in total turmoil and turbulence. And in these kind of times, businesses tend to take a backseat. Now, there has always been this logic which has been put out post-World War that wars are not necessarily a bad thing when it comes to economics. Well, way back in the 30s and the 40s, the human evolution and the industrial evolution and the businesses were at a different stage than they are today. There was still a lot of engineering, a lot of scientific research happening in different areas. And America kind of took the lead on that. I'm giving you this just in perspective of how things were. So when World Wars happened, it was not America which really took the brunt of the wars. Maybe the military bases and maybe, something like a hit on Hawaii when World War happened with Japan. And that was actually a tipping point for ending of the war. While Europe and the rest of the world was embroiled in conflicts and death, America actually went ahead and rolled its industrial base and grew its industry, grew its economy by leaps and bounds, and invested in technology, came out with new avenues and scientific stuff, which eventually started impacting, once the war was over, started to have a positive impact on the European economies and other economies, because those products went out. And then you saw an era where there was huge amount of industrialization and growth. So if you pick up the war from that perspective, yes, in retrospect, if you see, the world wars in terms of its destruction and all was really bad. The economies were totally the infrastructure was totally lost, but the rebuild phenomena and the fact that new products and new things came in and there was peace, largely peace, had a very, very positive and a northward impact on economies globally. Now we've reached again a saturation point where technology, the meaning of industry and everything is starting to change. We're not in the same paradigms of economies as we were in the 1940s or 70s. We're more digital. We are looking at more different kind of businesses. Our financial institutes have been far more under stress. We are far more debt-ridden as a global economy. Things are pretty different. So when we look at war from today's perspective, the one challenge that one can look into war on this perspective is that you would have certain industries which would really benefit, which would be certain metals, Needless to say, and I'm just in the sweet spot from that point of view because I'm in the defense business and in ammunition. So as much as I would not want the wars to go up and no human tragedy to happen, but yes, my industry tends to be one of the biggest beneficiaries of this kind of a scenario. So ammunition would do very well. Defense would do very well. Food will do very well, though there would be higher inflation, but people need food, people need water, people need medical aid. So there are certain industries which will do well. And if war happens, there are certain economies of scale that certain industries will end up achieving, and there will be far more employment in these industries than maybe other industries. So you would have slowdown, you would have higher rates of return, interest, you would have recession uh, in overall global economies. The purchasing power capability of the people will reduce. There would be far more unemployment. There will be loss of property, and there will be loss of human capital. So when you have large scale destructive wars, one has to also understand that there is larger human capital which is lost because a lot of people die. There's a lot of infrastructure which is destroyed. Uh, yes, once that happens, and kind of the dust kind of settles on the whole scenario, and the rebuilding process starts, that's when you would start probably looking at more of the positive sides that war has left. I mean, there is the huge negative part. So, when I say positive, I'm not advocating that war is a positive thing. I'm simply saying every negative eventually leads to a positive, and every positive also has a negative connotation to it. So the war in itself by being negative, but at the end of the day, once the rebuilding process starts, a huge amount of money goes into rebuilding process. That money gets distributed in the economy, that starts to go into increasing the purchasing capability of people. People get more employment. Uh, so that's where the things are.
May
As
I
I
ask a
see,
question?
yes, please go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, there's a common perception that the US is benefiting from the war in Russia. I mean, in Ukraine. So how is that? I mean, I know the defense industries might get some extra benefits, but really, how is it benefiting when they are not actually getting any foreign income coming in from Ukraine or anyone else uh, for their even oil and all that? For so how does
Uh,
it work out?
okay. Uh, your is your question more aimed strategically? Is your question more aimed from the point of view of geopolitics, or is it purely business? So if you give me a perspective that if how
Right now,
you
just
kind of
right now, it is just from an economic perspective.
okay. See, can I get your name? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm Sanju.
Okay. So Sanju, good morning. Sanju, very valid question. I'm gonna answer it from my capability in terms of my intelligence. I'm not a global strategist or an expert on it, but yes, I do read a lot and I use my brain. I could be right and I could be wrong. So take it with a pinch of salt, and I would leave my thoughts for you to evaluate with your intelligence. Now, if you look at Ukraine is a large landmass within Europe. Ukraine is uh, very rich when it comes to minerals. It's very rich in terms of its agriculture capabilities. Ukraine is also the largest landmass between Russia and the remaining part of NATO. Ukraine also is sitting on strategically on a location which is the Black Sea, which is also very rich when it comes to natural gas, crude. Uh, it's a point where it's a geopolitical fight between the remaining part of Europe and Russia in terms of having that land space. Because if Ukraine was to fall and be part of Russia, Russia is absolutely not is sitting on not only the doorstep, is actually inside Europe in many forms. So one is the geopolitical part of that. The second part is if you look at from the next 15, 20 years, Europe is a smaller continent. There's smaller patches of country. Uh, there is, while conventionally it's debated that crude and solar and EV is the future, I would still say the future of human being end of the day still boils down to agriculture. You need food for survival. You need the basal matter, fact, which is food. Food security is going to be one of the biggest challenges and concerns going forward, because the way urbanization has happened over the last 40 years, people are not leaving enough land and cultivable land for agro. Ukraine continues to be a large country within Europe. Uh, it still has a lesser population and large capability to produce. A lot of its stuff goes into Africa. A lot of stuff comes into India and other areas. Uh, as I said, it's got its strategic importance. It's got a strategic importance from global point of view, political point of view. Secondly, America is investing that money into that war with them, uh, because it allows America to have that foothold in the European continent. It's their business market. It's their strategic market. It is a deterrence. Europe, from a point of view of any kind of military warfare in the future, is also a deterrence, because for anyone to shoot any kind of intercontinental missiles into America, the more further you are, the more difficult it is. I mean, you're giving America that more chance. So while Russia is conjoined with America at the top end in Alaska and towards this thing, it's not the most hospitable area to be fighting a war. But I'm just putting things out. If Russia was to ever advance majorly into Europe, America becomes striking distance from there. So hence the Russians or the Iranians always try to kind of manipulate and see if they can get a foothold in South America through Nicaragua or Venezuela or these areas, to see, if they have some kind of a geopolitical military leverage in any situation tomorrow when it comes to a war. So America, I'm America that I have seen, is I've understood, is while there are many ills and wills and problems in America, Americans are very, very far-sighted. It might look that some of those American strategies don't make sense. People can abuse them, say, listen, you're idiotic. But if you look at 2023 today, the only country which is still sitting safe and even with its problems seems to be America. I mean, the whole world is in turmoil. Russia is totally on a banned list. China is fighting its own, grappling with its own issues. India has got its own issues. Indian subcontinent's got its own issues. Sri Lanka was nearly dead and buried. Pakistan is more or less dead and buried. So if you see, the people who are still surviving with their nose up the water are the American allies. So, Saudi Arabia has been living off America while they keep going up and down with this. UAE is doing fairly well. And everything beyond the UAE and Saudis, it's just that the political class in those Middle East countries are doing very well. The population at large is not all that hunky-dory doing well. Europe has been benefited with a lot of riches that they've plundered over the last 250 years. They've obviously, fact of the matter, they're smart people. They've ruled the globe with sorry?
Who are you talking about this now? Sorry.
I'm talking about the Europeans.
Yeah.
So Europeans have their issues, challenges and all. But, the fact is, even if you look at today, major scientific inventions, white papers, everything still comes out of Europe. So the class of intelligent people is still within that white folk or community that it's not coming out of Indian subcontinent. It's not coming out of the Middle East. Because the fact is, the white race are still have their mind towards development. Their mind is still towards going what is 40 years, 50 years up. Somebody in America for the last 10 years has been talking about, though I'm deviating a little bit from topic, but for your understanding. So, people are talking about how do they mine helium-3 out of the moon to get, that to Earth, so that a 25-ton helium-3, which is not radioactive, can light up the whole of whole of New York State, not New York City, which is at a fraction of a cost. So while, there are countries like us, we're talking about EVs and solar, America is already sitting about mining the moon. And so their missions from SpaceX and Orion and Artemis programs are not about, space trips and holidays to the moon. It's about very serious business of mining minerals. Now, barring maybe the Chinese and a little bit now that India is starting to think about it because they have a space program. Tell me who's thinking about it. I mean, we're still talking about water, crops, and we're talking about religion, we're talking about masjids and mandirs. So, those guys are sitting at, mining the moon and sending, I mean, as much as people want to kind of laugh away, but even the thought of going and settling humans on Mars, even though it might sound audacious, but fact is they're doing it. And someday they might even end up doing it. We have trouble. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm not bashing up, but the fact is, because real estate is also part of my domain in terms of my capability, we find it difficult to just give piece of plot and flats in India. They are talking about settling humans on Mars. So you look at the mental bandwidth, you look at the perspective, you look at this is how, countries grow. It's not the politicians alone. It is how the general population evolves in terms of their capability to think and have a far-sighted understanding of what they want in life. So, they're not thinking कि खाना कहाँ मिलेगा, पानी कहाँ मिलेगा, बिजली कैसे आएगी, बिजली के पैसे क्या होंगे. They're in a different league altogether. So, so the question is, in today's time, with all the ill wills, with the interest rates, economies, as I said, America's got its challenges. I'm not saying America has not got its challenges. But you ask anyone from anywhere, where do you want to go? Everyone wants to run to the US. I mean, if the globe is so nice, and if the Russians are so nice, the Chinese are so nice, the Middle East is so nice, you should think about taking a citizenship in these countries, settling over there. But no, everyone wants to go to America. And then they'll end up in America, then they want to abuse Americans. So there is a hypocrisy which is enveloped everywhere. I'm sure India is growing, and India has been growing, and India will have its sweet spot at some point in time. But India, there is no guarantee for any country to have a sweet spot, war or no war. It's the people, their own mental capability to drive their own destiny, which drives your capability to be a superpower or not. I don't think any president, prime minister, or politician can decide that we can be a superpower. It is, end of the day, the mindset of the people which decides whether they are going to be a superpower, which I'm sorry to say, but 80% of the world population doesn't have. If I take the Middle East and I take the Asians, they want to survive. They don't want to grow. So as long as you're in the survival mode, you will never think about going out of the box. And as Nupur ma'am is sitting here and she knows and she preaches about this, you have to go out of your box. You have to go out of your comfort zone. If you want to achieve something big, you need to have that confidence in yourself and say, listen, I can achieve. So I always say that every person who has capability, it's about setting your target. Now, if those targets are big, they can be achieved. But the point is, are you are in a position to pay the price for those targets? Because there's a price to be paid. So if you want to be a billionaire, there might be 10 years, you might not have food on your table. Now, if there is a point that you say, yeah, I don't have food on table and I'm not able to, achieve that, then you don't have the stomach for that ride. So, now somebody out of that becomes a billionaire, then he will write a book and somebody will say, देखो जी, इसने तो घर के गहने बेचे, इसके पास तो खाने को नहीं था, तो आज तो अरबपति बन गया. अरे, मगर आपको भी मौका मिला था, आप भी कर सकते थे. बट आपने बोला नहीं, जो मेरा पैसा आ रहा है मैं उसे 200 गज की प्लॉट खरीद लेता हूँ, तो मैं उसको बिजनेस में नहीं लगाऊंगा. तो so it kind of drives the economies and the mindset drives. So going back to your question, the US has long-term strategic views. As and when the war in Europe settles, maybe tomorrow, maybe in 5 years, 6 years, the rebuilding process is going to be done by the Americans. In very crude way, Americans are going to be the main ठेकेदार्स. They will be the ones dishing out कि कौन road बनाएगा, कौन अब नए वो बनाएगा, कौन business करेगा. While the
that is only if Ukraine wins, and it's not. What if the Russians take over Ukraine? Then there's nothing.
See, the point is, if the Russians had the capability to take up Ukraine, we are sitting in 23 October. The war started in the month of Feb or 2022. In a year and a half, Ukraine has suffered, the Russians have equally suffered. The Americans have invested billions and billions. They haven't done those billions to lose the game to the Russians. They've got the Russians engaged there. It's a dollar. They can keep printing. dollar is not a problem. The whole idea of the hybrid warfare, and because we're talking warfare, so warfare is just not in the 21st century limited to ammunitions and missiles. Dissemination of information, uh, everything is a warfare. What you see today about 90% on social media is actually not truth. You can't figure out what you're reading, what you are being told is right or it's wrong. So that's part of modern warfare, where there is information being thrown at you, and uh, human beings by nature are lazy, so they tend to agree with most of the things that they read and hear. And as I famously always tend to at sometimes quote Osho. Osho said, मानना जरूरी नहीं है, समझना जरूरी है. तो उन्होंने ये भी कहा था, भगवान को मानो मत, भगवान को समझो. तो और जो तुम्हारे सामने है उसको मानो मत समझो. बट वो लोग समझना नहीं चाहते. समझने के लिए दिमाग इस्तेमाल करना पड़ेगा, दिमाग इस्तेमाल करने के लिए टाइम खर्च करना पड़ेगा. टाइम में बट एवरीबडी इज हैज पॉसिटी ऑफ टाइम. तो या तो वो उस टॉपिक के ऊपर अध्ययन करें, घुसें उसके अंदर, अपना दिमाग लगाएं, तो उनको समझ आएगा कि व्हाट इज बीइंग सेड is right or is it wrong. So even when I started when I started speaking right now and I was addressing your question, I said I have a 100 maybe 50% probability of being right, but I'm using my brain. I'm not a global strategist. uh, so take everything that I'm saying with a pinch of salt and use your brain. What I'm saying is right or wrong. Use your own logic. I might be totally wrong from your perspective, which is okay, but
Sure. Yeah, go on. Hello? We're disconnected?
I think there is some internet issue.
We wait for Harmit to rejoin. I think so, some internet issue at his end.
minor
Yes. Yeah, please unmute yourself, Harmit. We lost you in between. Yeah. Now.
नहीं मैम, I am
Okay. Actually, we missed the last 2-3 sentences that you.
Okay, so I was saying that Ukraine is getting funded by the West. Let's not get into the morality of the hypocrisy of what they are doing or not doing. War is war. End of the day, whoever has to win, and Sam done debate. I don't see Ukraine losing. I mean, in war, everybody is going to get hurt. It's not tomorrow the war goes global. It's not as if America and Israel is not going to get hurt. War mein har aadmi ki shati hogi. End of the day, the question is who's going to stand on the top of the rubble. So, in my opinion, I still see the West standing. I don't see them. I don't see America going down. America is going to get weakened, but weakened to what point? Weak, even when it becomes weak from where it is, it's still far more stronger than people who are totally capitulated. And one of the fights in this hybrid warfare is to see if the dollar can become redundant. But if dollar becomes redundant, what will the rupee, the Chinese currency? No, it's not happening. That's a simple wet dream of people who want to see the American dollar go away. Fact of the matter is it's not going to go away tomorrow. I mean, the Bitcoin guys for 2 years were on and on. The dollar is going to collapse. Bitcoin is the game. And I used to keep laughing. And I used to debate sometime with Nupur ma'am. And it got hammered last year.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No. I was saying that the Chinese currency, the people like the Middle East and all are taking it up and trying to use it as a standardized. Even among the what do you say, the BRIC countries are trying to take away the control of the dollar.
Sir, they are talking about it. The rush in BRICS, if you see, is India going to use it? Absolutely no. Out of the question. Is Russia going to use it as much as they want? They might attempt. Are the Brazilians going to go after? Maybe some percent of their trade will go into it. That is hardly anything. So even today, you'll pick up the Indian INR. The Russians went in with the Vostok accounts and everything, and all of a sudden the Russians last month said, we can't do any more business with you in the rupee. You got a rupee trade happening with UAE because there is a huge Indian diaspora there. But you ask the Indian diaspora sitting in Dubai, are they going to go and buy properties and they want to go to Europe and the INR is going to work? The answer is no. So for their business perspective, the INR might make sense. From their lavish lifestyle perspective, the dollar tends to rule the roost. It's not going to be the yen. So yen is not going to buy them anything in Luxembourg. It's not going to buy them anything in the south of France. It's not buying them anything in London. It's not buying them anything in the US. It's not going to buy them anything in Mexico, Canada. So where? 6 countries, 8 countries, 9 countries, 10 countries is mass. That doesn't even qualify for 1% of the global population. So I can't predict the future. I'm not certainly anywhere close to being a guru or God. It's not my area, but I don't see that happening. And you can't stop any country from trying. I mean, it's there. They will keep trying. But you have to reach that level. You have to literally reach that level to say, listen, I literally can overthrow. The Chinese have grown as an economy on the back of what the American economy is. Because what they made was getting supplied to the American economy. While their population is not even equal to the population of the Chinese or the Indian, the fact of the matter is their consumption is so humongous that whatever China made was actually being consumed by the Americans. So unless and until the Chinese consumption becomes so immense or the Indian consumption becomes so immense that we say it's going to be that our currency is going to rule the roost, or we have a bunch of entire Westerners or Easterners standing with us to use I mean, where are they? The Japanese, the South Koreans, the Vietnamese, the Philippines, the Indians. So if you pick up Asia itself, let's say Afghanistan, the worst of, though Afghanistan's currency did very well last year, last 2 months. Now, if Afghanistan goes in and they want the best of ammunition and weaponry out of the West, though they're getting now supplied for the Chinese, they'll have to pay them in dollars. So even for the Afghanis, the dollars will continue to rule the roost while they'll abuse the Americans, but they will take out the dollar to buy the same weapon. So, it kind of moves with that. Yeah. Any more questions? I think I've given a fair perspective, Nupur ma'am, in terms of that. I don't think there is much to talk. I can't, because anything beyond this I talk from the topic will become very, very substantiatively, very nuanced and very specifics. I like to keep my conversation very basic so that it's just easier for everyone to kind of, absorb what I'm saying and give a perspective.
But it is the nuances that the real, insights come. So that's.
Sir, when I say the nuances, I don't want to get very technical. Because there are not warfare experts sitting on this. The idea is to give you a perspective where we are. And I have a couple of people who've run out to me in the last 2-3 days. Say, Harmit, you've been saying, and I've been saying the wars are coming on our doors, I think since September 2nd, I remember the date, September 2nd, 2020. And I remember writing a message to even Nupur ma'am saying, okay, Armenia, Ukraine, Middle East, this. I could sense because whatever little spiritual capability I had, and then I would read and I would say, okay, this is happening here and this is not right and this is not right. And I would join the dots, because if I started reading the global experts will have their biases. I have learned the hard way, politician ki baat ya bureaucrat ki baat ya technocrat ki baat ko nahi manna, because he is somewhere putting a curtain on the actual ground reality of what's happening. The ground reality is the people. It's their sentiments. And my sense was things will go to a war because the greed of the politicians to remain in power, because things are so bad. You don't have employment. Unemployment is not a issue today with one country. It's a global issue.
We lost you again. Nupurji, we have lost him again. Shabna.
Yeah. There is an internet issue. He's in the meeting, but then yeah, we just have to wait.
It's an issue with every country. Aspirations are very high. Am I audible?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
we lost the
Okay,
last few
sorry.
sentences. Yeah.
So I'm saying the aspirational part or the challenges that we face today may be in different forms and matter, but they're the same everywhere for humanity, whether it's job, whether it's aspiration, whether it's security of the children, whether it is the as we say in our corporate world, the KRAs, or it's for the people to figure out what their kids or their next generation or what they're doing over the next 10, 15, 20 years. I find certain amount of people are very clear in terms of where they have to go, but larger population of the world uh, is totally oblivious to their own future, because uh, the format has changed. You have digital technologies. People are spending so much time wasting their stuff on actual telephones and iPads, and uh, rather than being connected with. I say while technology has come in and we are more connected, but our communication capabilities, our intelligence has actually gone down. So, so, uh, so those challenges, the political upheaval, the COVID, is a very rich mix for politicians to brew up problems globally so that people get totally sidelined from their own aspirations and are more busy just trying to survive. So if you look at the larger population, is just trying to survive. They just do, I mean, somebody is surviving so that he can get food. Somebody is surviving that padhne likhne ke baad I can get a job. Somebody is surviving ki khana mil jaye. Somebody in the Middle East today is surviving ki mera ghar na ud jaye, main mar na jaऊं. So जब आप when 24 hours you're going to be in this, then for you the person who seems to be in power seems to be the guy who will find your way, like the 23rd century, 21st century Moses who says I'll take you through to wherever I have to take you for salvation. So you tend to let go of your own capability and destiny because you're so engulfed with these challenges. And when these challenges happen, then the politicians will then start feeding on the fear, whether it is a fear of COVID, whether it is a fear of religion, whether it is the fear of ethnicity. Those, because a fearful mind or somebody who's living far more in insecurities is ideal breeding ground for being more insecure and buying the fear. So if you look at our Indian ecosystem, it works very well. You look at Pakistan, it works very well. You look at every country is buying into that. And it's the population which is when that happens, at some point of time, it will eventually lead to a war. Because as we've known, the war benefits only the politicians. Their stature grows, their money grows, their capabilities, their ecosystem grows. How does it help the general public? I don't see if somebody can say it helps the general public or the country at large. No, it doesn't. So that is my 2 cents on it.
Acha, I want to run one thing by you. I heard an American military person, a very high level authority speaking about saying that, this the war is not going to be won by Ukraine because, the Russians have lost just less than half of what the Ukrainians have lost in terms of soldiers, people dying, and all that. So that's considerable amount of number of people have died among the Ukrainians. and we are actually overwhelmed by the defense capabilities of Russia. The attack, the
See,
kind of weapons that they have is not something which Ukraine can match, and so eventually, uh, eventually, America is actually maybe forced to go to war into get to save Ukraine. That is what they expect. That's what they're saying, and then it's going to be like real calamitous, and because Ukraine can't fight against it's not going to work. That's what they're saying. The ground realities on top, they are saying that yeah, we're winning the war, we have done this, done that, and all that. But at the grassroots level, this is what's happening. They're saying they're just not going to be able to take it. Hello, hello. I think you got.
No, no. So can you hear me? Yeah. So as I said, I'm not a clairvoyant. I really don't know which way the wind will blow. But uh, I also take what you're saying with a little pinch of salt, because the American society right now is pretty divided. Even when it comes to the military people, ex-military people, there are a bunch of people who want to kind of support it. There is a huge amount of the Republicans who don't want to support it. But I know if the Republicans were to come into power tomorrow, they will have no other choice. They will still go out and totally back the Ukrainians. Fact of the matter is, Ukraine lost ground in the first 5-6 months. They regained about 45% of whatever was lost. The wars are now more, limited to the outskirts. The bombing and the way Russians are bombing the cities has become much more less. In the last 72 hours, and again, I said there is information management and mismanagement from the Russians and Ukrainians on the social media. So from whatever little credible sources I know of, because I use my sources, I don't go by what's on Twitter, and I can't tell you the sources I use. Russians are taking a lot of infliction of this thing. Yes, Ukraine has lost manpower, but so have the Russians. So the Russians did not expect to lose that kind of manpower. Ukrainians were expected to lose that kind of, manpower. So if let's say I'm just giving a hypothetical, if 200,000 people in Ukraine have died in the war, no less than 125,000 people have lost Russians have lost their life. So from country to, so if you see from absolute numbers, you'll say the Ukrainians have lost. But if you see from the fact that were the Russians supposed to lose that kind of manpower, the answer is no. Were they supposed to lose the amount of tanks they have lost? No. So were they expecting the Ukrainians to have a counter-offensive, blow up their ammunition depots, blow up a lot of their naval assets in Sevastopol? No. Were they looking at the Crimean or the bridge to be blown up by the Ukrainians? So fact is the Germans, the Canadians, the Polish, the Americans, and the British have supplied some really deadly arsenal, which is not out open in the global media, but it has become a testing ground for the West to use, test some of their extremely futuristic advanced weapons. So it's become a ground for a very deadly conflict where a lot of weapons being used, which is not there out in the open market. So for the West, it's a brilliant thing because they're testing their ammunition. So the military, as they call the military ecosystem, which profiteers from this kind of a situation, is out and gleefully testing out their new weapons. There's a lot of stuff being used, which is ideally, let's say, not supposed to be used in warfare. My sixth senses, I'm going on sixth sense right now, not on logic. My sixth sense is Ukraine. Eventually, Russia is going to be not standing on the right side of history on this. Now, when that happens, I don't know. But I would not agree that Ukraine will be taken over by, because if Ukraine goes, Poland, Romania, all are extremely, and the Polish is one of the most meanest fighting machines within the NATO. And Polish have supplied whatever has been supplied to the Ukrainians has been going through the Polish route for the last 1.5. So there are vested interests to make sure that Ukraine doesn't fall. I mean, within Europe also. So now we'll see the next 1 month or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, 4 weeks, how the things in Middle East kind of open up. And then at some point of time, I do see the Taiwan issue also. Because this whole nexus that you're seeing right now, in my opinion, is the Chinese money with the Russians involved and the Iranians backing. Because even if you see Azerbaijan, Armenia, all these areas, the drones are actually being supplied by the Turkish, by the Iranians. So the Iranians are getting their foothold in the European conflict, in the Middle East conflict. So similar actors are involved everywhere.
So good hearing about water. So good hearing, listening to you.
Pleasure. But again, as I said, please take everything that I've said, debunk everything and use your logic. So if you at point in time you think that I'm wrong, I'm open to being criticized on that or getting corrected.
Yeah. So there is one more question. What does it mean for the common people who are losing in the war?
I was just hoping somebody will ask me that question. So, ma'am, you asked the absolute basic, fundamentally the right, I would say, the question. The fact is, which I just told Sanjuji and everyone, common people is the one that gets butchered in this. They die, their families get lost. It's seldom that the politician, the prime minister, the president, or the MPs, or the MLAs, or the Republicans, or the Democrat, their houses are going to be blown. They get to go into the bunkers. The common man dies on the road. Their houses are blown. The terrorists will never enter their houses and kill them. They will enter the common man's house and kill them. So the economy is there, which is to be butchered. The MPs and MLAs will keep getting their salary because they occupy the seat. They will continue to drive their fancy cars. So yes, it's going to be the common man which suffers. It is the uncertainty of the times for them. So I think it goes without saying. Within that, so while I have been at times criticized within my friends, yeah, that you become very negative. ये war होगी ऐसा मैं negative नहीं हूँ, मैं जो सच्चाई है वो बता रहा हूँ. अब आप बोलो लाल रंग को मैं पीला बोल दूं, मैं बोल नहीं सकता लाल ही. अब आप चाहते हो कि पीला समझना तो आप समझ लो. But you can't call me color blind because color blind फिर आप हो, क्योंकि जो लाल है वो लाल है. So accepting what is the truth on the table is the first paramount importance to find a strategy for your own well-being. If we understand where we are as a society, as a person, as a family, and we accept where we are, then only can you have the right logical strategy for yourself, for your family, for your society or your larger family ki kya karna hai. I understood in a way what was happening and what was going to happen 4-5 years back, and so I started taking the call of how my business and how my family and my kids need to be and where they need to be and what they need to be doing. Now, if I at that point I started telling myself, no, everything is hunky dory, ये भी ठीक हो जाएगा, वो भी ठीक हो जाएगा, सब अच्छा है, सब चंगा है, सब बढ़िया है, दुनिया बिल्कुल ठीक है, मस्त है, जाओ जी यूरोप घूम के आओ, इटली घूम के आओ. तो I am being delusional of myself on that particular day. So I need to live in the moment which I live, but I need to also be practical that my today is eventually going to define my tomorrow. So while as a human being, I would not be happy with what is around me, but if I am, which I am, which everyone is selfish, and we are supposed to be selfish, because if we're not selfish at some point of time, we will go down and there's nobody who's bothered. So I have to take care of my own capability, and for that I have to be selfish. And if I'm selfish, then I'll say, okay, within this entire tandav on the planet, how do I find my sweet spot to not survive, but actually grow? Because within chaos lies the capability to grow. Because chaos mein ma'am kya hota hai? Everybody is so chaotic, everybody is so passionate and about things, and they are so insecure that you forget that in chaos, because everybody is running helter and skelter. So if you find your, you know, how do I say, ma'am, Nupur ma'am, this is your area. If you find your sthirta and you find the stability in your mind and you can look at the situation dispassionately without biases of caste, religion, this thing, you said, this is how it is going to be. You have already reached the point where you will use that chaos to your advantage. Otherwise, the chaos will engulf you. तो इसका भी मेरा एक कहावत है एंड में बोलते बोलते, पैसे के पीछे आप भागते रहोगे तो लक्ष्मी आएगी नहीं, क्योंकि लक्ष्मी तो और अब लक्ष्मी हम ले लें, दुर्गा माँ ले लें, सरस्वती, ये तीनों माताएं हैं, इनके पीछे भागोगे कुछ नहीं मिलेगा। तो जितना स्थिर होके एक जगह रहोगे ना, वो बोलेंगे तो वो आपके पास आएंगे क्योंकि वो आना चाहती हैं। तो स्थिरता में तो ब्लेसिंग है, और किसी चीज के पीछे भागते रहोगे तो वो भागते ही रहोगे, वो कभी मिलनी नहीं। वुड आई बी राइट मैम, नूपुर मैम?
Yes, 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 of course.
दैट इज माय सेंस। तो अगर तीनों देवियां चाहिए, विच इज पावर, शक्ति एंड लक्ष्मी, तो स्थिर होना जरूरी है। और ये आती ही कियोस में है। दुर्गा भी कियोस में आ रही है, लक्ष्मी भी कियोस में आ रही है, सरस्वती का तो सबसे ज्यादा जरूरत ही हमारे को कियोस में।
Yes. What is your final message to the world in this chaotic time?
Ma'am, they should, I mean, every human being has same blood. Everybody has the capability to make this planet so beautiful. I mean, tigers don't kill because they hate the other animals. Tiger kills because he needs to eat. The day tiger realized its killing was out of hatred, probably the tiger would stop killing. So there is nothing in it. These ideologies and all, I mean, we all are so intelligent as human species. We can all grow, make this a very vibrant place to live. But then this has been talked about for centuries and centuries. I mean, I don't want to go, it's a controversial thing. Somebody, I mean, South India, like you live, many people worship Ravan. तो अगर रावण को जब मारने गए थे राम, तो रावण के लोग भी तो बोल सकते थे ना, यार तो इनोसेंट आदमी को मारने आ रहे हो। तो हर रावण एक टाइम पे किसी के लिए इनोसेंट है, और हर राम किसी के लिए हो सकता भगवान है, भगवान, और किसी के लिए राम कुड भी शत्रु। अब लंका के लिए तो राम शत्रु ही था ना। बट राम को पता था रावण मेरा शत्रु नहीं, और रावण को पता था वो राम मेरा भगवान है। तो जो लड़ रहे थे उनको पता था हम शत्रु नहीं है, बट जो उनके लिए लड़ रहे थे वो सारे शत्रु थे।
Yes. So on the whole, I would say that जो कुछ भी हो रहा है आप अपने अंदर में देखो और उस हिसाब से अपने आप को जानो. You should see inside you and then take decision how you have to go about it. If it is possible, don't fight among yourself. Be together, unify yourself and move forward towards a common goal. Because on the whole, I would say it is the mindset. It is just the small things which create a big blunder. And this is what has happened because small thing has grown bigger and the war happens. So we should try and make things more peaceful and understand. And if possible, we should send our, you can say vibrations to all those who are struggling in this difficult time so that they can find a new way out and make this world a beautiful place. So with this note, I would like to thank Harmit Chawla for being with us and clarifying so many things that it is all about mindset. It is not the common people who are, who are saving their grace. They are only suffering and they are the only one who are fighting. The leaders are just sitting and managing and administrating everything. So you have to, everyone should understand what's going on and keep yourself safe, keep around you also safe and peaceful. Don't fight among yourself, even in family also, with your neighbors, with your people, with your colleagues. Be more cordial, be more unified so that we can build a beautiful world without war, of course, and economy will flourish like anything. So This is what I would like to say in the end. And with this note, I would also request Harmeet Chawla ji to come again and be more, share more of his experience in different areas, because he seems to have so many different areas of expertise, and he would discuss with me so many things which is really logical. And right now he has interpreted very beautifully the war zones and the economy, and how you can benefit with this mindset, with this advices. It is up to you. So
Thank
everything
you
is
so
there,
much.
all in the open. It is a bare reality, and this is what I like with Harmeet, that he is really very open about it, and he just have the mind to say it right. So with this note, thank you very much,
Harmeet,
Harmeet,
I have a
and
question, Nupur ma'am.
yes,
I
yes.
wanted to ask, how long do you think this Hamas and Israel is going to go on? Any idea?
I mean, it's not even started as yet.
Oh God. Yeah, it's still
Yeah.
going down to ground offensive.
Yeah, because see, what's happening is there is a lot of backdoor negotiations happening. Uh, as of if you see last 24 hours, Iran is backing back a little bit from the support to Hamas. Uh, so
And why is
Israelis
that?
are
Because Iran is the one who is actually funding them.
absolutely, because see, the point is uh, the Secretary of State Blinken is all over the Middle East. He's gone to the Saudis, he's gone to the Qataris, everything. America is starting to bring a lot of their defense equipment to support. And they've said if Hezbollah goes into, or Lebanon goes into a full-fledged war with the Israelis will continue to concentrate on the Hamas, but the Americans are going to go really hammer and tong after the Lebanese, which is the Hezbollah.
Why?
Now, that's the interest of this thing, because with Lebanon is the area of Syria, the Americans have a lot of their assets and everything. And if they don't contain Hezbollah, then this war will spread to every Muslim country, which means your entire Middle East and Mediterranean is absolutely up in flares. So as much as that, the Americans don't mind it happening, but they don't want it to happen. So the Israelis are going to go hammer and tong against Hamas. They will destroy them. So they backed down a little bit by opening the pipelines in the south of Gaza for the water. But they were to go for a ground invasion yesterday but there was a lot of flooding happening in Tel Aviv and Israel. So they have postponed that. That might happen today or tomorrow, but they are going to go in and
What
they
caused the flooding?
rain, ma'am, just torrential rain. So because of that, they've just taken their war campaign that they wanted to get into the ground invasion of Gaza maybe a day or two late, but it is coming. It is coming, and
But it's very unfair on Israel also to ask the people to leave within 24 hours. I mean, this is impossible.
I I would I would agree and disagree, because again, as I said, there's a lot of information which is being put out, which I cannot validate or not say. So, what I can't validate, yes, they've told the Palestinians or the Gaza people to move from the northern part of Gaza to the south. But a lot of the people in south wanted to move into the Egyptian area, but the part is the Jordanians, the Egyptians, everybody closed their borders. They don't want a single Palestinian to come into their country while they're sitting in their countries, and they're saying, "You stick around in your own country, don't come." While we are a brotherhood, we feel for you, we believe you shouldn't be killed, but we don't want to give you an inch of land of our area to come in for even temporary. So as I said, there is hypocrisy at all levels. Uh, Now, you can't obviously have 2.2 million people walk out of the country or one side in 24 hours, which I totally agree. But the call to move has been given now. It's been nearly 72 hours. And they have said it's not a permanent move. We want you to go to the south because north is where the whole problem is, so that we don't want any civilian casualties. And the one of the fundamentals, and I'm just being logical, I'm not taking anybody's side on this, and it's not right on my part to do that. It's all humans end of the day. But a war is always also a matter of certain strategy and surprise. The more time is being bought in, the more time you're giving to Hamas to either run out through their tunnels or plan out the war. So in a war, everybody wants to win. Nobody is going in to get their soldiers or get their people killed. So Israel has its own point. The Palestinians have their valid point. There is a fact which says that, listen, it's not us. We can't be collectively punished for what is being done. But the point, again, and I'm just using my own logic, Hamas is part of your system. Either you have the capability to stand up and say, enough is enough, and we will not allow this to happen to us by even Hamas. But I don't see the Palestinians getting that capability to stand up on their own feet and say, listen, I'm not going to be party to this nonsense by our own rogue faction. So in any country or
That's
whether it's
also
democracy
true.
or
I mean,
autocracy,
Palestinians should stand up, and because
they have to.
Hamas is using them as a shield.
It is. So I'm saying they have to stand for their own right. And that has not happened in so many years. So you can say that, listen, I'm not part of Hamas, which is great. It is like, again, a very controversial part of my saying, but for many years, let's say a BJP supporter would have said, yeah, listen, Congress was doing this, but democracy allowed you to bring a change. Today, if they are here and something is happening in the system, 60% say, listen, we didn't vote for the BJP. But end of the day, it's your own country. So similar to the guys when Congress was, somebody who said, listen, we didn't vote for Congress. It's not about BJP in Congress. It's about your own country. It's about your own destiny. You can't put it into the hands of the politicians and the parties or the rogue elements. You have to have the guts to stand up, and which means if somebody is going to lose their life to Hamas within Palestine, that is the sacrifice you're willing to take. Where you go now, you go into the British era of Indian rule. It was not the British soldiers who were killing the Indians. It was the Indian soldiers deployed for the East India Company, which would kill their own people. But somebody decided enough is enough, and we're not going to allow the Britishers to continue. It was never the outsiders who came. Eventually, it was the Indians who stood against the Britishers. And it was British administration governed with the Indian army. It was a British army, but mostly it was Indians. So a lot of the freedom fighters in India didn't get killed by a man who was using a British gun, but it was a British gun being used by an Indian guy who killed another Indian guy. I mean, there was no concept of India at that time, but it was people from this land killing the people of their own land, but with a British gun. But somebody decided to get up.
Will this war affect the economy, the Israel-Hamas war?
Yes, it will, because
Indian economy.
Ma'am, see, the Indian economy is on two levels. Okay, while our government or our administrator talks about 5 million, 6 million, $6 trillion, $8 trillion, you have to understand where are those trillion. It's not trillion rupees, it's $1 trillion. How are you going to make those trillions? You're going to do those trillions by exporting, importing. Your exports have to go up. You have your own paradigm problems within the Indian economy. Okay, which is, I have always said that there are problems. The government doesn't say it's okay. I'm not fighting them. I'm not countering. I have an opinion. I'm not publicly saying, but I'm saying there is a problem. You are still not making something so worthwhile that people are lining up globally to listen. We'll buy it from India, which will exponentially grow your exports. Now with the global situation getting worse and worse, you have to understand the global economies are going to behave. Global demand is going to go down. When global demand and economies are going to go down, it will eventually have a far-reaching domino effect on the Indian economy. Indian manufacturing or whatever is a sub-supplier to a larger supplier. So we make, let's say, components for the automobile. We make XYZ, XYZ, XYZ. Now, if those main areas of industries get hit, eventually their demand collapses. It's going to be in demand for our own production capabilities and stuff going to get hit. You will have less foreigners coming in a time of war, which means tourism is going to get affected. So it is going to have a domino effect. It will have a domino effect on the Indian economy. And to couple with that, if the if the dollar rupee parity goes haywire, and over the next 18 months, let's say hypothetically, the dollar goes even close to being 100, it will have huge impact on our oil imports. It will have huge impact on the fact that while our GDP is going, which is nominal GDP, it is going up because you are growing. It's not as if you're not growing, but fact is your imports are surpassing your exports. So you are masking it by saying, listen, our exports have grown from so to so many billions. But the fact is, in the same time, your imports have also grown. So when the imports will grow, a dollar rupee disparity is going to make those import values go much higher. So it has a huge impact on the economy. How can it not? And your global and your domestic consumption in India is not so strong. So how are you going to do it? Infosys has come out 4 days back with such a huge statement, which is not getting debated anywhere. That they say we have frozen the hiring for the next financial whole year. Now Infosys saying we're not going to hire people, and they're already cutting their manpower. Wait for Wipro or wait for a TCS. So these are some of the giants which employ people. In India, you have this rush to become engineers, IT engineers, robotic engineers. Now these engineers are coming out from the A grade colleges, and I mean, you forget everybody doesn't come out in India out of A grade; they come out of B and C. So if a A grade guy is going to find difficult to get employment, I would shudder to even think what a B grade or C grade. My son is 21. If I ask him today, getting out of his BBA finance honors, do you think you'll find a job? I mean, I know where he stands. He has no answer. I mean, he's meritorious, he's intelligent, he's getting great grades. But I don't want to be sitting at a point where, as a father, I have got to call somebody and say, listen, my son is intelligent. Why don't you interview? If that was going to be the situation, not everybody has that capability in India to make a phone call. And even that phone call doesn't guarantee that you'll get a job. Nobody is going to moonlight me for the sake of my relationship for his organization. So for how long will 21, 22-year-old kids keep sitting on Instagram and WhatsApp and keep buying digital packages and wasting their time? Which is what is happening. And so the privileged ones are probably not doing that. The unprivileged ones are just whiling away their time because they don't know what to do. Or they are borrowing some money and putting it into the stock market. So stock market is not worth. Stock market is making money for yourself. The country grows when you start making, if I have, let's say, 2 crores today and I start investing in stock market and I start making money, I'll have losses and I'll have profits. End of the year, if I make on 20 lakhs out of 2 crores, I made my money. But have I given employment? Is that investment of my 2 crores eventually adding any benefit to the country? The answer is no, just adding benefit to me. If you want to grow as a country, you have to get employment up. You have to have people being involved in productive. So, when we get to go to jobs or we do anything, when I'm working and I'm running, I used to work in a company, and when I'm running my business, my effort on a daily basis is not only providing for me, but it is also creating an ecosystem of employment. But if I start using all my money just for my growth, which is just to grow my income, it doesn't grow anyone around me. It doesn't grow anyone around me. When it doesn't grow anyone around me, the country then eventually doesn't grow. So, what
That's
is
very
happening?
true, very true.
Sorry, ma'am.
That is so true. You just hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
But I
Absolutely.
disagree on that. If you grow other people, you grow yourself also.
Yes.
And in fact, you grow yourself more, because if you grow others, then you get a this thing side effect of that is you yourself get.
That's a challenge. And I'll just quickly sum it up. When I, for about 17 years, was in a job, and when I took a call to get into business, at some point of time, I remember, and I told Nupur ma'am, I said, I think the biggest spiritual factor is obviously you got to do business in the right way, as light as it can be. The ecosystem doesn't allow you to be very honest. So you have to find the challenge to be as close to your principles. It's not easy. But being an entrepreneur is so challenging, so difficult. It is not easy. But if you are able to make that plunge and you start growing your company, it's your effort, your sacrifice, an entrepreneur which starts running that company and starts creating an environment of employment, which is what people want. The employers, I have realized because I've been an employee, employees seldom understand the challenges that a owner has had to go to put that company up for him to have a place where he can be employed. Yeah. And it's a challenge to sustain it every day. And I find it the most spiritual thing that if you can run an organization on the right values and principle in employment, it is better than going out and giving chanda. It is better than going out to putting anything in the gullak in the mandir or the gurdwara. Because your effort as an entrepreneur to put up a company and provide employment gives the capability to somebody to run his family, run his house, run his household. I think there can't be a bigger, service to humanity than doing that.
True.
Wow.
Yes, absolutely.
So good. I
Yeah.
would like to conclude here because we are already past
Yeah.
time, and it is already 9:15,
Yeah.
going to be 9:15. So let's conclude this, and we will call
Yeah.
Harmeet again for more discussion on different topics. Okay, and this was very interesting. And Sanju really had lot many questions, and in future also he will have many questions. So
I'm sorry,
Sanju,
Dukuji, if I stopped you
we
guys from,
yes, yes.
interrupted you.
So yes. So you always you be here when Harmeet is coming, and you can satisfy yourself with a lots and lots of questions. Right now we are running short of time. Everybody is waiting also to go and have their breakfast. So with this note, thank you very much, Harmeet, for
Thank
sharing
you, ma'am.
Thank you,
very
Harmit.
in-depth analysis of what's going on around the world and about the economy, how war is impacting, will impact our economy, global economy.